my name is Jessica Studebaker, and this is my presentation on ethical dilemmas in bail bonds. An ethical dilemma is a complex situation that often involves an apparent mental conflict between moral imperatives in which to obey one will result in transgressing another. Ethical decisions require ethical thinking. Questions to ask yourself when making an ethical decision. How can I know the right action in this situation? What are my obligations and to whom in this situation? What values or ideals do I want to represent in this situation? And what is likely to happen if I do X or Y? Something to remember is our obligations are varied and often conflicting. Obligations are the responsibilities you have to everyone involved. You have an obligation to yourself to act in your own self-interest and according to good conscience. You have an obligation to clients and customers to stand by the people to whom you are bound by contract and who pays the bills. You have an obligation to your company to advance its goals, respect its policies, protect confidential information, and expose misconduct that would harm the organization. You have an obligation to coworkers to promote their safety and well-being. You have an obligation to the community to preserve the local economy, welfare, and quality of life. Finally, you have an obligation to society to consider the national and global impact of your actions and choices. These obligations may fall under different order depending on the situation, but when the interests of these parties conflict, which they often do, you have to decide where your primary obligations lie. There is reasonable criteria for ethical judgment. You must ask yourself these personal 3 questions. What ideals do I want to stand for? What could happen to others or to me? To whom I am obligated? Things to remember. What seems like the right action might be the wrong one. Ethical questions often resist easy answers. Anticipate some hard choices. What actually is a bail bondsman? Bail agents act as liaisons between courts and defendants, providing the funds required to release from custody a defendant who is awaiting trial. Should the defendant fail to return to court on the assigned day, the bail agent must track down the defendant or hire a bail enforcement officer to do so within a period of time set by the courts. If they are unable to locate the defendant within that time period, bail agents must forfeit the entire bail amount. 5 major ethical dilemmas that a bail bondsman may face. Bailing out a family member, friend, or colleague. When bailing out someone you know, you should remain professional and follow the rules and regulations of the state you work in. In this situation, your obligation is to your company and to the courts which you work under. Failure to follow the regulations could mean loss of your license, your family member, friend, colleague back in jail, or even criminal charges against yourself. Bailing out a major criminal. When it comes to bailing out a major criminal, you need to set aside your personal feelings. When bailing out a person, it is not personal, it is just business. Discrimination is against the law. Possession of large amounts of money. In this business, you are given large sums of money daily. The temptation of taking the money can be great if a person is not focused. Keeping the relationship between bailer and bailee professional. Becoming friends or having an intimate relationship with a bailee is unprofessional. Always keep your standards high and act in a professional manner, whether it is in front of a judge, in a court, or in an office with a customer. Follow the state regulations set by the government for the bail bondsman. Each state has laws and regulations set up to protect both bailer and bailee. These laws and regulations need to be known and followed by every bondsman and may be different from state to state. Although these are only some of the dilemmas that a bail bondsman might face, it is important to look at each situation and assess it using critical thinking and use ethical judgment. It can be easy for a bail bondsman to fall off track and get themselves into legal trouble. There are different ways people handle ethical issues in the workplace. We tend to react in ethical situations in the workplace in a specific way depending on our background, level of training, and personality. Here are the 4 ethical types I have found in my work. The conformist is an employee who follows rules rather than questions authority figures. One might think this person could be counted on always to do the right thing. The negotiator is someone who tries to make up rules as he goes. When faced with a sketchy situation, this person might wait to see if the behavior affects his job in any way, to see if the drinking gets any worse, or to see if anyone else notices. The navigator is someone who, when confronted with a situation in which people are behaving unethically, is able to rely on an ethical sense to guide her actions, even if these decisions aren't easy. This person has a sound moral compass which provides the flexibility to make choices, even unpopular ones. The wiggler doesn't give a lot of thought to what is right. Instead, this person makes the route that most advantages him. An interesting fact, according to a Gallup poll, only 21% of people characterized as business professionals are said to have high ethical standards. The good news is that your ethical type isn't set in stone. There are tools you can use to become a more ethical employee and problem solver. With practice, you can make ethical decisions more easily and more quickly. See and follow the path right. In conclusion, no matter what mindset you have when you walk into a bail bonds career, your utmost obligation is to uphold the law and regulations of the state you are working in. Failure to do this could result in major problems and loss of career for yourself. Some problems that I might face as a bail bondsman would be the conflict of my obligation to my company and my obligation to myself and my society. I have seen where many people are bailed out, people like child molesters and murderers. My obligation to myself and my society would tell me that this person should not be bailed out, but my obligation to my company would be business's profit. Things like this will probably make my job difficult, but my obligation is with my company, which is where I get my paycheck from to support my family. If I were to characterize myself into one of the 4 ethical types, it would be the conformist. After jumping through all the hoops to get my license, I think that I will follow the rules to the best of my ability and not question the people above me. I think that as long as they are not asking me to break the law, I will just make sure that what I am responsible for is done properly. It is scary to me that there is only 21% of business professionals that have high ethical standards. My goal is to be part of that 21% and set my ethical standards high. That's it.